things first, I'm Frances. I'm the lead program manager for Chromebook adoption at Google. And so today we're going to talk all things Chromebook. And I'm joined by Russ White, who will talk about Grab and Go today. If you've been using the Dory app, great. If you haven't used it yet, give it a download. That's how we'll take questions for this session. So go ahead and get that started, post them there. We have a whole panel of people here to answer your questions about Chromebook deployments. So please go ahead and get that queued up so that you can put all your burning questions there. What we're going to talk about today is why Chromebooks. I think most of you are here because you know, but I'm just going to make sure we're aligned on that. We'll talk about driving adoption in your organization. I'm going to tell you all the secrets and how we did it at Google. And then, of course, Russ is going to talk about Grab and Go. So the first thing I want to do is just share with you that Google actually is solving a lot of the same problems that most of our IT customers are solving. We're a mixed fleet ecosystem of Mac, Windows, Linux, and Chromebook devices. We have a huge Chromebook fleet, as you can imagine. We're one of Chrome Enterprise's largest customers. And we also care about improving operational efficiency and reducing IT spend. And so that's one of the reasons, in a long list of reasons, why we love Chromebooks. So from a user standpoint, Chromebooks offer a sort of distraction-free productivity environment that's purpose-built for cloud workflows. And obviously, from a business standpoint, they're security built in by design, an intelligent investment both in management and cost. And so because of that sort of whole slew of reasons, Chromebooks are a great choice for our organization and hopefully yours. And so with all of that in mind, Google set out with this goal that users are happy and productive on Chromebook devices. And that's a very specifically worded goal. We could have set a goal that said users use Chromebooks, and that just means we give Chromebooks to everybody. But we have this sort of secondary achievement of making sure that people are happy and can do their jobs and can do them well and are excited about being on the platform. And so if you share those goals, then this session, I think, is going to be particularly interesting for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through what we call this adoption timeline, which is kind of from start to finish, from evaluating Chromebooks as a potential device to put into your fleet, all the way to getting users up and running on that device and how to handle sort of changes, including attrition from the platform. And what you'll see at the end is we're going to provide some artifacts for each stage of this journey so that wherever you are in this timeline, we've offered something that will help you either in the challenges of that space or maybe even move on further down the timeline than you're in now. So from the onset, you're probably going to be evaluating what types of hardware are sufficient or acceptable for your environment. And one of the questions that we get asked actually quite a lot is how do you decide what platforms to bring in to the Google space? What makes Chromebooks great? How do you determine what are the qualities of a trusted platform? And what are the ways that you look at security and management? And so there's an artifact, if you haven't seen it, that we recently published that talks about exactly what Google expects from a platform when they bring it into the fleet, including prevention in terms of risk of infiltration into the platform, risk detection, the ability to manage the device, how much control we have over what kind of data it consumes. All of those features are listed in this document. And again, at the end, I'm going to give you this list of artifacts that you can reference. But when we evaluate all of our platforms, those are the things that we consider. And Chrome certainly passes the test, especially with the way that the security is designed in the platform. And so if you're sort of on board with bringing Chromebooks into your environment, the second most common question we get is which Chromebooks should we bring in? There are, of course, Google-made hardware, and we're really excited about it, and we think it's great. But we also, including at Google, support third-party vendor hardware. So there's a lot of different choices. And when you're looking at what's the best device to bring in, of course, the first things that you're going to think about are performance and specs and what types of work that people are doing. But when we surveyed Googlers as they're bringing Chromebooks into the ecosystem of choice, the things that were most important to them, and these are in order, are they wanted a lightweight device. So our workforce is generally quite mobile. A lot of people move between offices. They do quite a lot of traveling. We exist in cities where there's a lot of heavy commuting, and so people are carrying their laptops a lot. And so weight was one of the biggest requirements. The Pixelbook is the lightest device in the fleet that we offer, and so it was obviously very satisfactory to the users who adopted it. They also want a high-quality hardware look and feel. People who are doing important work want to feel like the hardware that they have supports that important work, especially when you have a choice between other premium hardware options. They want a device that's supported by their peers. There is this sort of phenomenon, if you choose a Chromebook and you're really excited about it and you enter a team where no one else is using that device, that it can cause people to take sort of a second look at their decision and really question if that was a good choice. And so having peers understand what the device is capable of and making sure that it's sort of pervasive across roles is really important. They want a great battery life, of course, and a touchscreen was actually close to the top four reasons that we got from Googlers. And so achieving all of these things was actually quite simple for us with Pixelbook because it is high performance, it is a high quality piece of hardware, it has a touch screen, it can work in tablet mode, and it's the lightest device in the fleet. And so because of that, the employees that we survey, 90% of them are quite satisfied and want to keep and would recommend their Pixelbook to another team member. And so once you've selected the kind of devices that you're going to bring in your environment, now the next question is more strategic. Are we going to mandate, from a business standpoint, that users will now adopt Chromebooks? That's our new fleet. Or is there going to be an ecosystem of choice where people can choose and you need to influence their behavior? And so at Google, we actually do have both scenarios in different teams for different reasons. And so each of those different approaches require different strategic ways of executing on them. Managing change and telling people that their platform preference is not going to be part of the story when they select their device requires things like making sure that you're choosing the right people to start with and expanding your scope to better candidates. And if you saw our presentation last year, and it's up on the channel, you can reference it if you didn't, we talked a lot about segmentation and how we think about segmenting user types and identifying good candidates for Chrome OS before we sort of push the device en masse to people who might not be prepared for it. And what you'll learn later in this presentation is that the percentage of people who don't have experience with Chrome OS is actually a lot higher than even we anticipated within Google. And so that means that if you're going to push this change, it requires a lot of care. And if you're working in an ecosystem where people have a choice, that's a different story. And so that's where we do a lot of marketing initiatives. What we found is that getting the device in the hands of the users is one of the most effective ways to get them excited about the device. And so Russ is going to talk later about Grab and Go, which is one of the key initiatives that help users get experience with Chrome OS before they sort of make the plunge or are exposed to the change. And so I call this out because if you're going to deploy Chromebooks, you have to sort of consider which of these, if not both, are going to be true for you, and then consider that either change management or a lot of education and marketing is going to be required depending on what you do. Obviously, from a provisioning standpoint, we're really excited that Chrome's so easy to provision. So in the case of a Chromebook, it's really a matter of enterprise enrolling the device and delivering it to the desk. Because of the nature of the way that we image alternative platforms like Mac and Windows, we save 109 minutes every time a Chromebook is deployed in place of one of those other platforms. And so from a management and operations standpoint, the more Chromebooks we deploy, we have this sort of exponential gain. And that's just based on the nature of images for those other platforms within our ecosystem. And so you've provisioned a device, which is great, and you've delivered it to the user's desk. And this is where we actually learned quite a lot. And this whole presentation is designed to try to prevent you from having to learn all of the things that we spent a long time figuring out. And so what we first tried to do was just respect that people were new to the platform and then give them as much information as possible for them to be successful. And the way that we sort of determined success at this point, which is getting up and running and sort of keeping the Chromebook as your primary device, is do they stay on the platform? And so if we're experiencing attrition from the platform, that means we're doing something wrong. And so what we learned is there's sort of three basic phases that users are going through when they're adopting this new platform. The first and foremost thing on their mind, especially with new hires, is I just want to get email, calendar, and like the essential work apps set up. That's the first thing on their mind. So when we talk about sophisticated, like cool pro tips and productivity hacks and workflow examples, it's way too much. It actually underlines that they're about to experience a learning curve. And so we don't present that mountain on the first day that somebody gets a Chromebook. We sort of ease them into the basic critical things that they need. The kind of second phase after the first few days, and once you get into that first or second week, is personalization. So people tend to download personal apps. They're starting to translate their workflows from other platforms. And so that's sort of like basic information of tips and tricks. I used to do this on Windows. How do I do it on Chrome? Or I'm more familiar with Mac. Kind of curated information that will help people ease into the transition is what we present at that time frame. And then once you get a few weeks further down the line, that's when we get into that productivity hacks. Here's how you use hotkeys and keyboard shortcuts and those type of things. And so this is an important lesson for us because 84% of the Googlers that were assigned a Chromebook device this year had little to zero use of the platform. And that's a lot. That's self-reported when we survey the new people who were assigned this year. And so that really taught us a lot about the type of information that we need to provide and how we need to break it down. And so again, the artifacts that we use and the strategy will be given to you guys at the end of this presentation, so including tips and tricks, campaigns, and the type of content we have there, and also surveys. So we do survey all new users of Chrome OS, and we ask them about their initial impressions so that we can give direction for additional resources that they need. But another important part of running Chromebook adoption is staying on top of sort of a monitoring goal. So if you set a target for Chromebook adoption, or you're just trying to understand the basic health when you introduce this in the environment, there's a massive monitoring and dashboard need. And we spent so many iterations designing charts and figuring out what questions to ask. Should this be a par chart? Should this be overlaid on something else? And so we've done all of that work and provided a sort of template example for you on what a dashboard could look like if you're trying to answer some of these questions. Because these are the 5 things that we generally wanted to answer. How many people have a Chromebook versus how many people are using it as their actual daily driver? So there is a circumstance where an employee could potentially have more than one device, and we treat that circumstance differently. So if they have a Chromebook and also another platform, that's not the same definition of success as if a Chromebook is their only operating system. And so that's question number 1 for us in terms of defining adoption. We also want to know why people leave Chrome OS. And you could just ask them, and you'll get this massive flow of open text that you have to later interpret. We've also done that for you, so we've given you sort of a list of reasons that you can use to aggregate and collect that data. How many people are choosing the laptop at the time that they have a hardware decision? So any milestone where people could select an alternative platform, whether it's moving to a new role or refreshing a device, we want to know what the trends are there. New hire assignment is absolutely critical because it sort of sets the tone for what the future will look like in terms of growth. If you're trying to kind of create a new population of users versus focusing on converting the current population. And then lastly, where does Chrome assignment stand against some of the other platforms? So our goal is that Chrome assignments are above the other platforms and obviously in the sort of up and to the right line. So we've created some examples on those questions and how we track and monitor them so that you can potentially take that back. And so I mentioned that we survey new users, but we also survey this like super important and very well-respected group at Google, which are people who leave the platform. And so they tell one of the most important data parts of the story. What we found is that you could ask a user, hey, if we gave you a Chromebook, would you be able to use it? And you'll get a lot of anecdotal and hypothetical reasons why they could or could not. But actually asking someone to try it and figuring out when they leave the platform in their journey and why they're leaving produces the most valuable insights for us. And so what we learned is that 30% of the people who left the platform left for reasons that we could, in theory, control. And so reason categories like education, resources, training, materials, communication about what the platform is and what it does. And so because of that, that attrition data both tells us how to set the direction to sort of maintain retention, but also gives us the most actionable feedback for product teams. And we'll talk a little bit about that right now. So our goal is obviously that people can use the platform as much as possible, but we also have this responsibility to communicate this story of if people can't use it or don't want to, let's figure out why and make Chrome competitive against the other platforms. And so we encourage all of our customers to sort of do the same. Filing a Chrome bug is sort of step 1 to collecting feedback, and Google does this as well. And then stack ranking and prioritizing your requests is the next phase. And so we presented a template for you in sort of our kit that you'll get at the end of the day. And these might seem like obvious questions, but this helps sort of narrow exactly what's required for you to both collect and monitor your own story, but also creates an artifact that like your technical account manager or customer success manager can help navigate and escalate where necessary. And so this is driven by that attrition feedback and also the new user feedback. Creating those surveys in a way that's easy to monitor and measure and present up on a dashboard can be hard. It requires a lot of data aggregation. And we dedicated a huge amount of UX research resources to this so that we can present these artifacts in a way that we think are intelligent and are actually valid research methods. So you'll get those too. And so just to sort of summarize where we sit in terms of Chromebook at Google. Every time we deploy a Chromebook based on the devices that we're purchasing, we save 50% just in device costs. Every time we deploy a Chromebook over another platform, which I mentioned before, we save 109 minutes. And for every single Chrome OS support interaction, there are 3 from another platform at Google. And so that means those other platforms are generating 3 times as much support. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and we could talk about them, but obviously they have to do with complexity of the platform and the way that the images work and a number of other things that users can experience just based on what the platform is capable of. And we do have approaching 90,000 active Chrome devices at Google. And I mentioned before that 90% of our users who have Pixelbooks are satisfied with the devices and would recommend them to their employees. And so based on this sort of timeline and all of the things that we've accomplished, we see this as great success. We tripled our adoption population since last year, with adoption being defined as users using the platform as their primary device. And so this URL is available. You guys can also get access to this after the session. But what this URL points to is the timeline that we spoke about and all of the artifacts that are related to each of those milestones. So that includes surveys, tips and tricks campaigns, the dashboard template example, and any other resources that we felt like could be beneficial to you wherever you are in the stage of your adoption journey. So definitely take a snapshot of that so you can download it and have a look. And so I mentioned before that one of the best ways to get users excited about the platform is to get the device in the hands of the user. And Grab and Go has been one of our most successful ways to do that. So Russ is here to talk about that.
Great. Thanks, Francis. I'm Russ. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Grab and Go, our self-service Chromebook loaner program that we run at Google. We're going to talk a little bit about why we created it, why we're still working on it, how it works, what it is, and then talk a little bit about some of the successes that we've seen at Google and perhaps how you can make some of those your own. We have some really great options for how you might be able to deploy your own Grab and Go program. So first up, let's talk about why. Google is just like any other company. We lose a lot of time to IT downtime. Our devices break just like everyone else's, and when we first started this program, we were focused on minimizing that downtime. So IHS Markit estimates that North American businesses lose over $700 billion a year just to IT downtime. And we also knew that the traditional loaner program journey really isn't great for anybody. So our users had to come to help desk when the help desk was open, they had to wait in line, they had to get a loaner device that probably wasn't a great device, and they had to do that again when they were returning it. For our IT staff, they were maintaining those devices, ordering them, provisioning them, and they also had to spend all the time handing them out, and none of that is really fun work for our team. So we had a lot of signals telling us, go in this direction. We also had a couple of opportunities that we knew about, things like the fact that Google employees use our help desks at least once per year on average, and oftentimes quite a bit more than that. And we also knew that around 80 or 85% of Googlers could be fully productive on Chrome OS. Not all of them required a Windows or a Mac OS to be productive, so we knew that we could put a device in their hands that they could get their work done on. And then why we're continuing to work on this program, we're still iterating on it, we're still making it better. Around 35% of Googlers used the Grab and Go program in 2018. Around half of them, 18%, were using the program to work around a true productivity blocking problem. So some IT problem, maybe their device was broken or forgotten or something like that. And then the other half, another 18% or so, were using the program for more convenience reasons, maybe picking up a device between meetings, or maybe they're traveling and just want to pick up a laptop when they arrive, something like that. So at its simplest, this is Grab and Go. You walk up to one of our shelves, they're just out there, you can use it whenever you'd like. You walk up, pick up a device, sign in with your Google account, and get back to work. When you're done, you bring it back, plug it in, and that's it. There's no IT team intervention required, you don't have to talk to anybody, you just walk up and take a laptop. So the core components of the program start with the kind of physical domain. So the devices are a key part of this. We make sure that our devices that we put in our program are enterprise grade. We want Googlers to be productive when they're using devices. We want them to be durable. They need to kind of survive going from person to person, being thrown back on the shelf, being thrown in your bag. And we also want it to be cost conscious. We don't want to spend so much money that we're really giving everyone 2 devices. We want it to be perhaps a little bit cheaper than that. So that's the first piece. The second is the shelves that we buy. So we prefer to have shelves that are modular because we have offices of different sizes. Sometimes we need a little tiny one, sometimes we need a very big one. In all of these cases, we want charging to be built in. That's a key part of the experience. You need to be able to pick up a device and walk away with it and know that it's fully charged. So that needs to be an obvious feature of the shelf. And we also want them to have key safety features. And that's something that we didn't think about a lot early on, but we really do a lot now. We want them to be resistant to tipping. We want them to be grounded. We want them to be coated in a non-conductive material so that you can kind of remove that from your line of thinking. And the last piece is we designed our signs and stickers to be very self-explanatory. We found that the loaner flow that we designed was a little bit awkward for some users. It felt like you were walking up and stealing a laptop if it wasn't explained at all. So the signs that we put up there are very clear, very concise. They're step signs that's actually very similar to what you saw in the last sign, saying, no, just really pick it up, sign in, and bring it back when you're done. And we also placed instructions at key points in the user journey. So when you open the laptop, there are stickers inside the laptop that explain how to sign in, how to connect to Wi-Fi, how to return it, things like that. Another key ingredient of our program is Chrome OS itself. Chrome OS makes it very easy to just sign in and get back to work. So things like Chrome Sync or the integrations with G Suite products make it incredibly easy to get back to work once you've signed in. These devices are very, very secure because of the built-in features of Chrome OS. Things like verified boot, automatic updates, sign-in restriction, those are all super easy to configure. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the next couple slides. And these devices are very, very easy to maintain. We manage our entire fleet just with the click of a few buttons in the admin API, the admin panel. So we have a very easy time managing a fleet of upwards of 2,000 devices. So it's not all just signs and devices in Chrome OS. There is actually quite a large management infrastructure that we've built. At the center of all of it is an App Engine application that's kind of the brain of the program. That application is where program administrators monitor the performance of the program, who's assigned to what, which shelves might be low in stock, those kinds of things. And it also is streaming all of that data and information to BigQuery. Another key piece of it is Google's admin API. That's where we enforce a lot of those policies like verified boot. One other key policy that we enforce there is a custom-built Chrome application is pushed to every single grab-and-go device. So when the user signs in, the first thing they see is that application popping up and greeting them and saying, hey, welcome to Grab and Go. Here's how you use this device. That application also guides them through setting a return date. They can ask questions there. They can report problems, those kinds of things. And then, of course, all of these things allow for integration with the other internal tools, right? So we have a ticketing system, we have an inventory management system, those kinds of things. So like I said, when we first deployed Grab and Go, we were doing so for the avoid lost productivity situation, so forgotten, broken laptops. But after we deployed it, we found that Googlers were using this program for things that we didn't really expect, and we're still not exactly sure how to measure the benefit of those things. So some of those things are travel. So we found that a lot of Googlers will actually leave their laptop at home, travel to another office, pick up a laptop there, use that, put it back on the shelf, and then travel back home just to avoid carrying a laptop with them. We also have big groups of shift workers inside of Google. We recently published a blog on how Waymo is using Grab and Go. So they have shift workers testing driverless cars, and they take a Grab and Go device with them every time they go out. So there's a couple shifts of those workers, and they've saved money on not needing to buy devices for all of them, and they also have a really great management solution with Grab and Go. And then, of course, like Francis was saying, it's a really great way to get Chromebooks in people's hands. Using the device is a really great way to break down barriers and understand the power and ease of use of Chrome OS. So we're very happy with Grab and Go at Google. We found that each loan really only needs to save about 25 minutes of productivity time to pay for itself. And our most conservative estimates show that in 2018, we saved around $17 million if you convert productivity time to dollars. So this is definitely something we're going to continue investing in, and it's something that, like I said, we're very happy with. If you're thinking about deploying your own Grab and Go program, but you're seeing all of these pieces that need to be put in place and thinking, I will not do that, have good news. We have really great partners that can work with you. So we've spent the last year or so working with some of Google's closest partners. The list is much longer than just what you see here. Their services range from anywhere from procuring hardware, setting up devices, customizing the application that we built, doing inventory management, training up your team on how to run the program, anything, up to and including even white glove service. If you're more of a DIYer and you're thinking, this looks great, I can do that, that's excellent. We have code all open sourced on GitHub, github.com/Google/loaner. Everything's there from code to art to deployment plans to whatever, everything you'd need to deploy your own grab-and-go program. Like I said, the partners, talk to your partner, definitely start a conversation there, or feel free to engage with one of the ones that we showed on the last slide. All right, well, thank you everyone for coming, and thank you again. Have a great day.